Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I am back in a Porsche Macan. This one isn't mine, this one belongs to a good friend of mine, Danny, who has just bought this car. We pretty much bought them around the same time. I've got the Macan S, the petrol version. This one is the Macan S, the diesel version. Now when I was specking up my car, well, I'll say specking, when I was searching for the Macan S, I was mainly interested in the petrol version, but I did kind of notice that there were quite a few diesels as well, and I never really drove a diesel, so I wasn't really, in the know-how as to how well these cars drive. So today I've got the diesel version, and I just want to see whether I should have bought this car or whether I'm happy with the Macan S Petrol version that I've got. Now just before we start this vid, I'm going to go around the car. It is a bit windy out there, hence I'm going to sit in the car and talk to you about this. This is quite nicely specced out. It's definitely got a better spec compared to my Macan, and some of the highlights in that I'm going to talk to you guys about. Now, first of all, the thing that you can notice is that it's got a lovely panoramic glass roof. I highly recommend that if you are in the market looking for a Macan, whether it's a Macan S, GTS, Turbo or whatnot, definitely have the pan roof, because it lets so much light into the cabin, which otherwise can become quite a dull place. Now this one has got some nice options fitted to it. Let's start off from the sound. This has got the Burmeister sound system, which sounds amazing. This car, from what Danny has told me, has got about £24,000 worth of options fitted to it, and I'm sure that the Burmeister sound system is quite a pricey option. The steering wheel, again, typical Macan, it is electrically adjustable this time. It's also got the radar guided cruise control, and it's also got the Porsche dynamic lighting system, which I think is the PDLS. This car has also got the PASM system, Porsche adaptive suspension management. See, I'm getting to know all of these acronyms that Porsche keep coming out with. And it's also got a rear option, which I believe it's quite rare on a Macan S. It's got the airmatic suspension. Now my car doesn't have the PASM and it doesn't have the airmatic, so it's going to be really interesting to see how this car really drives compared to mine. It's also got, on a day like today, which is quite nice and bright, hence the sunglasses, it's also got cooling seats, which is probably something I'm going to be using today. It's also got these comfort seats, which are the same as mine, although these are all in black. But these are 14-way adjustable, unlike mine, which are only 8-way. So straight off the bat, this has got quite a few nice options fitted to the car. Pretty much what you'd expect a Macan to have. Porsche and their must-have options list, I suppose. So a couple more options that I've noticed that are fitted to this car are the side blades. Those are usually plastic, or they have this kind of like a texture kind of finish to them, as on mine. These ones are in the body color. Yes, those are an option. And the rear lights on this as well. These lights are tinted rear lights. These are standard, I believe, on the GTS, but on the Macan and the Macan S, these are an option as well. So it really gives the back end quite a nice aggressive look, I suppose, with the way this car is set off. I've also noticed that the wing mirror on the left hand side, that dips down when the car is in reverse, and I believe again that's another option. So yeah, this car has got quite a few options that my car is missing. Some of them are quite nice to have, others I believe are kind of a must really on a kind of price point at this level. It should really just be all standard, to be honest with you, but yeah, that is just Porsche and their options list. So in terms of the engine, this one is the diesel. It's a 3-litre diesel engine. It has about 260 horsepower and about 600 newton meters of torque. I'll drop in the exact numbers down here anyway for you guys. 0 to 60, this is in the region of about 6 seconds, 6.5 seconds, thereabouts. It's a little bit slower compared to the equivalent petrol version that I've got. That does 0 to 60 in about 5 seconds with the Sport Chrono Pack. This one doesn't have the Sport Chrono Pack. That's something just to kind of point out. But there's very few that I've actually seen with the Sport Chrono Pack. So for example, I've got the Sport Chrono Pack, but then I don't have some of the nice options that this car's fitted with. It's also got the 21-inch turbo alloy wheels, and these are wrapped around with like the P0 tires as well. So gonna be interesting to see how this car rides compared to mine, which is riding on 20-inch wheels without the PASM and without the airmatic suspension as well. So yeah, let's see how this is compared to that. One thing that I did notice is that with the airmatic suspension fitted with this car, it's so easy to kind of slide in and out of the car. It doesn't feel like you're climbing into it because this is sat quite low. We're going to put the car into its high setting so you can see how the car kind of like, you know, goes up and down on that as well, which will be quite interesting. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fire the car up. Got the key in the ignition already. I'm just going to give it a bit of a sound check. Okay, it does sound quite different to the petrol equivalent because that's a little bit more smoother, and it's also not as loud on the startup. It has a more of a raspy kind of sporty startup, whereas this is quite diesely. But it is a 3 litre, so it's going to be quite smooth anyway. Let's give it a bit of revs and let's see how it sounds. Let's turn the camera this way. Oh, it's got a soft limiter. Let's see what it sounds like from outside. Okay, so I'm not sure whether you got any of that sound noise. There's not really much sound. It's a diesel engine. Obviously this car doesn't have the sports exhaust pipe. It does have the sports black trims on the exhaust, which mine's got the chrome ones. This one's got the black ones, but it's not got the sport exhaust, so it's not bad for a diesel, if I'm honest. I mean, it's a V6 diesel, so it's going to be quite smooth. Overall, I think as far as diesel engines go, it's quite smooth, and I think it's got quite a nice sound to it. So I'm going to head over to those country lanes and drive this car and compare it to my Macan S Petrol and kind of see whether I should have bought this car over the one I've got, and also give you guys a bit of an impressions review in terms of how this car performs if you guys are in the market looking for, you know, a Macan S, and you know, you're trying to weigh up those options whether to go for a petrol or the diesel. And I'll try and give you some kind of pros and cons of this car as well. So just a little bit about the Porsche Macan. It's Porsche's best-selling car. It beats any 911, Boxster, Cayman, whatnot. You know, it is kind of a lifestyle car because, you know, you've got a family, you want to have a Porsche, you don't want to go through a divorce. This is the car that you go and buy. You know, you got the brand, you've got like the performance, and pretty much it drives like a car rather than an SUV. And that's the same with mine as well. Without the PASM system and the Airmatic suspension, it rides absolutely brilliantly, and the way it drives, the steering feedback and everything like that, it is like a car rather than like an SUV. And it's really amazing how Porsche have got that kind of a 911 DNA into an SUV like this. I'm not going to sit here and say that yes, it's a sports car, but I tell you what, it puts the sports back into the utility of the SUV. So I mean, look at this. I'm just cruising around that corner and there's hardly any body roll, and that is just amazing. I mean, yes, I'm going to exploit a little bit more about this engine and its performance as well. The only thing with the Porsche right now is with the Macans is that if you were to spec one brand new, you're not going to be able to, you know, get like a diesel, because they've just canned them straight off and they're just concentrating on petrols and going into electrification on the next gen. But my impressions on this car, I've spent quite a bit of seat time in this, like pretty much all morning before starting this vid, and I must say it really gets down the road really well. And you can't, once you kind of go in, it doesn't really feel like a diesel, like, you know, the noise and everything is just really sedated. And the in-gear shove, from what I can tell, you know, you're kind of cruising along, it's on par with my 3 litre V6 petrol, which has 340 horsepower and a little bit less torque. That was about 460 newton meters of torque. So this, once it gets going, it definitely has, you know, the performance to match the petrol. That, you know, and that's just like the feel that I'm getting. I think the only downside to this is when you are trying to get going from, like, say, a set of traffic lights, it's noticeably slower. I think the petrol just has the edge on it, and that's a little bit more crisper. The other thing around this is that obviously it doesn't have the soundtrack of the petrol car. I think when you're revving out, you know, the 3 litre V6, it just makes a real nice sort of sound. You can hear the engine sings. This one, it sounds like a 3 litre diesel. Not a bad thing, but it's kind of hushed, which, to be honest with you, it's probably probably just hear it there. It's probably the right thing that it's a little bit hushed. I mean, it's not a bad sound, you know, it's just a sound. The suspension on this car, that's a huge difference compared to what I've got on mine. Mine's just on the steel dampers and the standard springs, whereas this is on the PASM system, and it's also airmatic as well, and it just cushions over all of these kind of like undulations in the road, to be honest. So I can't really feel any bumps, just irons them out, and it's really supple as well. But I think the best thing I really like about the Macans is how they just, you know, kind of handle like the road, and the steering feedback. I mean, this steering is electronic power steering, but it just loads up really well when you're just like going through a corner like the way we are right now. It just loads up really nicely, gives you the right amount of weightness, and that whole connection between the road and the steering, you really feel that in the palm of your hands, which I just think is just amazing. So there's very little, you know, between the diesel and the petrol in terms of driving dynamics. I think the biggest thing is, if you are looking at one of these, and if it was me looking back and trying to go through my whole search again, I would definitely want to have the adaptive dampers or the PASM system in this. I think that plays like a huge part. So this doesn't have the sports chrono package. So what does that exactly mean? Well, it means that you don't get the little dial on the dash, you don't get the sports plus mode, and you don't get like the lap timers, and you don't get launch control. I mean, really, do you really need that? I've got that in my car. It was a feature that I actually really wanted to have, because, you know, sports chrono. How I used it, not really. Yes, occasionally I do go into sports plus mode. I don't really launch the car. Probably done it once, that novelty's worn off. Sports plus mode is, you know, it's quite aggressive. I'll do a full in-depth review on the driving modes of, you know, the Porsche Macan in Sport and Sport Plus. I'll probably do that on my car anyway, in the next sort of couple of weeks or whatnot. But in this, I think it's just set up right. You know, you just got normal drive, and then you've got sport, and obviously you can go into flappy paddle mode as well to change gears. But I really think that this is much more effortless to drive. You've got that diesel torque there, and it just kind of purrs you along. There's no need to even kick down, because you got so much torque. I mean, I'm cruising in 6th gear right now, and just put my foot down. There you go. It's just picking up nicely, and you do get that nice little surge as well when you just plant your foot a little bit. So yeah, overall I think, you know, it's more relaxing to drive compared to the petrol version. And what I mean by that is just because of the amount of torque that you've got, it's a bit more effortless. Anyway, I'm going to stick the car now into sport mode and show it some corners. Put it into manual as well, 5th gear. Yeah, it's definitely no slouch. I think really it depends on, you know, how many miles you're going to be doing and what you're going to be using the car for, and I think that's the main reason you'd want to be looking at the diesel. I mean, I went for the petrol. I mean, I don't really do a huge amount of miles. I mean, I've got my M4 and I've got the Macan. They're both 3-litre petrol cars, you know, but that's a kind of a choice thing, because I don't do a huge amount of miles. I went for the petrol because I wanted a Porsche Macan and I wanted the petrol version. Personally, I kind of think if you're gonna buy a Porsche, you know, you're gonna buy it for, you know, the performance, and you're gonna buy it for, you know, like the crisp petrol engine. That was my reason behind it. If you are looking at buying one of these cars, but, you know, you are doing a lot of miles, then this totally makes sense. And it's not really like a half-assed attempt at a diesel engine that they put in this car. I mean, it's a V6 diesel. There's plenty of torque, and it really like gets from A to B effortlessly. And, you know, I mean, you can even buy a Macan in a 2-litre, guys, which is a 2-litre petrol, which is the Golf GTI engine. And I think that's just best avoided, because you're just going to get frustrated with the way that car performs. But this thing, the gearbox as well, you know, the PDK, I've already done like a in-depth review of the PDK against the DCT. You can watch that on the link up here. It's really well suited with this 3-litre diesel. This PDK works really well. I'm just gonna fling it around some more sort of twisties. You do get that kickback, you know, right? It pushes you right in the seat. Yeah, it's definitely got the performance. And the gear shifts are right there when you want them. It's so quick to like shift down. I mean, I'm on this drive and I'm actually pushing the car, and my range has increased from about 380 miles to over 400. I mean, 400-mile range. I don't even see past 280 on the Macan S on my petrol version on a full tank, and this is giving me over 400 right now. Crazy numbers. I really think that if you do end up buying this car, you will not be disappointed in terms of if you're looking at buying like a Macan diesel. Like I say, it's a choice thing, and it's one of those, is a preference as well. Like if you're doing a lot of miles, you'll end up buying one of these things anyway. You wouldn't even consider the petrols, because the petrols are quite heavy. You know, if you're interested in me doing like a, you know, like a running cost with, whether it's on this or whether it's on my Porsche Macan S Petrol, then just leave a comment below and I'll see what I can do. But yeah, I am impressed that this car drives as good as the petrol, you know, in terms of performance. My initial thing was that it's going to be a bit laggy, but I think once you're in sport mode, it's not laggy at all, to be honest with you. It is really sharp on the throttle, really sharp on the downshifts, and the best thing about it is you don't even realise that it's actually a diesel. Like the, you know, with like the sound and whatnot. Yeah, I am quite impressed. I don't really regret buying the petrol, because that, again, like I said enough times in this vid, that was like a personal choice, and I really wanted the petrol. I mean, had I got this, I don't think I would have been disappointed at all. Certainly wouldn't have been disappointed with the fuel economy, I'll be honest. The thing with the Porsche Macan is, you always feel like it's a rear wheel drive car, because it sends about 75% of its power to the rear wheels in normal drive mode anyway, so you're always getting that feeling of being pushed along like a proper sports car. It's quite lovely, I'll be honest. I'm certainly enjoying this drive. Look at that. Honestly, you can just fling these things straight into, like, say, bends and corners and whatnot. I think the biggest things I'm going to take away from this car right now is how well this car rides on the 21-inch alloy wheels with the PASM and the Airmatic suspension, and that is something that I really wish I had on my car, because that makes this car totally complete. The ride even on 21-inch wheels is just amazing. I think my car on these roads is a little bit jittery. I wouldn't say it crashes about, it's just a little bit jittery. So I think overall I'm hugely impressed with this car. If you are looking to, you know, buy a Macan S Diesel, I would say just go right ahead and buy it. I probably sound a bit like Carwell right there, but no, seriously, you know, this thing drives amazing, it performs brilliantly, and I think overall it's just a great car. So guys, I really hope that you have found this vid enjoyable to watch and useful. If you have, give it a like, share, subscribe to my channel, and hopefully guys, I'll see you on the next one. Take care, bye.